Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today, we got our third annual prospect pyramid here with the Edmonton Oilers, and I am excited to talk about some Oilers prospects, which, means that the hockey season's going to be coming back here soon. When you're making a prospect pyramid, you know that the season's about to start back up and it's time to get hyped for it. But before we get into talking about the Oilers prospect pyramid, I'd like to just say, if you are new to the channel, make sure to slap that subscribe button and hit that like button as well. That'll be very much appreciated, boys. And also, go check out my boy Steve Dangle. He was making prospect pyramids even before I was, and also the LFRs and just everything else. Now, you guys probably know who Steve Dangle is. He's pretty damn big around this, YouTube area. He's even worked for Sportsnet, so I would definitely go check out him. I watched almost every one of his Leafs prospect pyramids, and I loved them every single damn time. So let's get into the Oilers prospect pyramid, which I'm pretty excited to talk about some Oilers prospects because it's, my favorite time of the year. So let's get right into it, which we'll talk about tier 1 here for the Oilers. And there is nobody in tier 1. There's no, big franchise player. Dylan Holloway, he's going to be a good player, but he's not in that type of level where he's a franchise, McDavid, Draisaitl, those types of players. They're not. Dylan Holloway is not up in that category. Now, if he absolutely pops off and shows that type of degree, then awesome. But, he's more down, which we'll get down into tier 2 now, which is Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. These are two easy picks. Evan Bouchard, of course, is not there this year, which you could, of course, notice. He already played more games. He's actually not officially a rookie, and he can't even compete for the Calder, which is just depressing. But Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg will be in tier 2. Dylan Holloway had a tremendous season there in NCAA. He played for the University of Wisconsin, and in 23 games, he had 35 points. He was playing alongside a Cole Caulfield, and they were absolutely just ripping up there in the NCAA, and also didn't do that bad in the Canadian under 20 or the World Juniors. He did actually really well. I really loved his game when I seen him in the World Juniors. He is a terrific two-way player, but his power forward prowess as well is something to be scared about and something to be intimidating for other teams. I think Dylan Holloway will be, he's one of our best prospects without a doubt right now, especially him as a winger center. He can play anywhere up and down the lineup, and we're expecting him to possibly be the future line mate alongside of Connor McDavid or even Leon Draisaitl for years to come. So Dylan Holloway is a really exciting player. I watched him a lot there in NCAA. He seems like a really exciting player. His skating's pretty powerful. He's just a really strong player, almost in all lengths of the ice, and I'm just really excited to see where Dylan Holloway will be. He's 6'1", 203. He's a big boy already at the age of 19. He's just a really exciting player to look at. And then, of course, Philip Broberg. You guys all know Philip Broberg had a bit of a down year this past year, dealing with some injuries, COVID. SHL wise, he didn't, get a lot of chances. I'm hoping to see him, come up in Bakersfield, but I'm thinking they're going to be playing him in the SHL once again. But I would like to see him in the AHL. I'm pretty sure they are. I'm not too sure where they're going to be, what Ken Holland is totally going to do with Philip Broberg, but he did pretty well in the World Juniors up until he got injured. I really like his skating. I think he can be a very flashy defenseman too, but he mostly relies on his defensive capabilities, which is totally fine for me. Like we were saying, he's kind of like a future Klefbom, right? He has that potential to be, an offensive guy, but he's mostly going to be, really well defensively, and that's all right. We need that type of defenseman to come up the pipeline like a Broberg. But I think this next year is going to be a big year for Philip Broberg. He's going to be 21 years old, or he's going to be he won't be turning 20 until 21 until next year, but this is a big year. It's his 20 age year. He wants to do good this year. You want to have a good season this year and show the Edmonton Oilers what you're capable of. Show that what you did in training camp before the play-in rounds, that you could still be that good of a defenseman. So I'm excited to see what Philip Broberg will do. I still think he belongs up there in tier 2. A lot of people are doubting him throughout the past year, and a lot of the NHL PE stats don't really support Philip Broberg very much. So this is a big year for Broberg, I feel, to take that big step up, because if he doesn't, I don't know if we could really place him in that tier 2 anymore. But this is a big year for Philip Broberg on whether he's going to be the defenseman that we need him to be for the future, or he might not be that guy. Anyways, let's move on to tier 3, as we got Raphael Lavoie, Xavier Bogault, Dmitry Samorukov, Tyler Benson, and Ilya Konovalov, which I gotta say, this is a pretty good, tier. Now, you guys are probably gonna ask me, why didn't we throw Xavier Bogault up into tier 2? Now, I love Xavier Bogault's game, but, it's not as great as looking at Dylan Holloway or Philip Broberg right now. Xavier Bogault is going to be probably a great top 6 goal scoring guy. He put up 40 points in 20 games there in the past season there for the QMJHL in the shortened season, of course. He did pretty damn well. But he is a player that is going to help us in the future. I think Xavier Bogault will be a guy that could play second, third line minutes, be a great goal scorer, play on the power play most likely, and I think will be a guy that fits on our squad for years to come. And then moving on, one of the guy, Tyler Benson as well. This is going to be a big year for Tyler Benson on whether or not, the Oilers are going to give him a chance. He didn't play throughout last year because of COVID. They didn't call him up or anything in that sorts. He did really well in that Swiss league. I think it was the league below the Swiss league, but he did pretty well. Put up 19 points in 15 games. This guy is an elite playmaker, and I don't know why we really haven't given him a chance yet. He put up a really good year in the AHL there for the Bakersfield Condors, putting up 36 points in 36 games. He was at a point per game production this year there in the AHL, and I would really like to see him take a roster spot at this upcoming preseason, which I fully believe Tyler Benson will be in the lineup this upcoming season. Of course, we're throwing him here in tier 3, which I think he could be, a low top 6 kind of player, but most likely going to be playing in the top 9, a guy that can pass that puck beautifully. He has the vision. The problem is a lot of people hate his skating, which, if this guy is passing the puck like this, we shouldn't be as worried on his skating as, all of us are. So I think Tyler Benson deserves a roster spot this season, especially with the way that he's playing there in Bakersfield. And I fully expect, Tyler Benson to be jumping into the lineup this year. I really do. He played pretty well in his little stint when he was playing with the Oilers back, our first year when I was doing the OGRs, where he played 7 games. He only had the 1 assist, but the guy was playing with Riley Seahan and Josh Archibald, and I give it to Tyler Benson. He played a really good damn game. I just don't understand why we didn't play him throughout this year. Maybe it was because of COVID and we didn't want to call him up and deal with quarantining. I don't know. But I would really like to see Tyler Benson up. And then Raphael Lavoie, the last forward out of tier 3. Raphael Lavoie had a really good season. This was a season where I really enjoyed Lavoie's game. In Bakersfield, he put up 10 points in 19 games, did really well in the playoffs for Bakersfield. He also did good in that Swedish league, the Hellevisenkian, or whatever it is, where he played for Vasby. He threw up 45 points in 51 games. And the biggest thing with Lavoie, he's just really becoming a dominant goal-scoring power forward, really. He's a big boy, 6'4", 196 pounds. He's a big guy. I'm really excited about the future of Lavoie's game as well. With Ryan McLeod jumping in the lineup and him being also a second-round pick in Lavoie, which Lavoie was a steal, I think. Lavoie didn't mean to drop down that far. The Lavoie was supposed to be in the first round and somehow dropped into our hands in the second round. And he is a really good-looking right-wing center, big power forward, big body. Once again, his skating is a little bit weak, but it's actually not even a bit weak. It's actually not that bad as skating. He doesn't have that bad of a game, and I think he could be a really, really scary power forward moving forward. So I'm really excited to see what his game will bring. And now we'll get on to the 2 Russians in Dmitry Samorukov, which he had a mess season. There's a lot of people saying that he didn't have a bad year. There was a lot of people saying that he didn't have a bad year, but there's a lot of mixes. And looking at the stats for Dmitry Samorukov right now, they don't really support his climb up. It seemed like he had a bit of a down year there in the KHL, and maybe that was because he went back to Europe instead of playing in the AHL. The AHL was pretty filled with a lot of defensemen, so there wasn't really a lot of room for Dmitry Samorukov to jump in there, which of course this year is kind of the same thing. He's going to have to take that big step unless he is going back to the KHL, which I know I've been seeing that he's on a loan, but I haven't heard any confirmation if he's going to be going back to the KHL or coming to the AHL, which I think he might be. I think that was just the reason why, was because of COVID. But he didn't have a bad season there in the KHL. Is still a guy that could turn out to be a medium, a top 4 defenseman. I don't know why I keep bringing out NHL potentials. I play too much franchise mode. But the guy's getting up there in age. He's 22 years old, and it's going to be about time where the guy's going to have to take, the next big step up in his career to be that defenseman that we want him to be. He was a long-term project when we drafted him, and we'll have to see if he pans out, right? He didn't have a bad year in the KHL. He put up a good plus and minus, but that stat's kind of irrelevant. Put up the same kind of points he was in the AHL. He's more of a defensive defenseman from what it looks like, and he plays a good defensive game, no doubt about that. He does. Just the biggest thing is, can he take that next step? And then our best goaltender prospect right now is Konovalov. He had another good season there in the KHL in 923, 2.29 goals against average in 19 games. He played a little bit less games this year, which I thought, gave him better stats. But he hasn't really played that good up in, when it was the 2018-19 season where he put up a 930, which was just absolutely insane. Konovalov is looking like a very good goalie. I mean, hearing he's going to be coming over to the AHL this year, going to be battling there with Stuart Skinner, so that will be really exciting as he adapts to the North American game. I'm really excited to see how well Konovalov will do in the AHL and how well he'll play. He is getting up there, 23 years old. That's around the time when goaltenders are starting to jump in, mostly probably with Konovalov. We probably won't see him until 25, maybe 24 if we're lucky. Depends on how well he does in the AHL this upcoming season. But this is a guy that, he's fast. He's a smaller goalie than most, which, that's against him. But the way that he moves in that net, he's quick, he's fast. He does a really good job at, I can't even find the word, but he does really well with his speed, undervaluing his size, right? With, a lot of goalies, usually they are a lot taller and a lot bigger than what Konovalov are, so they don't have to cover as much net. With Konovalov, he has to use that speed to cover the net as much as possible, and he does a great job of that, and he's done a really good job in the KHL. Just the biggest thing is, how well can he translate his game to the KHL, to the NHL? That will be the biggest question, and that will be the biggest thing with him coming over to North America. So let's get down and dirty with the Tier 4, as we got more prospects to cover. So for Tier 4, we got Kirill Maximov, Kar Savoy, Tyler Tullio, Philip Kemp, Michael Kesselring, Cooper Marody, Stuart Skinner, Oliver Rodrigue, and Maximov Berzinkin. I'm probably going to butcher that name hardcore because it is Russian, and I'm definitely not going to be able to find any pronunciation. So if you guys want to help me with that one, please comment down below. A lot of you guys helped me in the last prospect pyramid, so that's a lot of help. So we got a lot of prospects in this one, and that's, I guess, the one thing you could say that's a positive about Ken Holland right now, which there's not a lot, is that this prospect pyramid is filled up with a lot of prospects. The higher up tiers a little bit less, but with these bottom tiers, they are just filled with a lot of prospects that, have some potential. Who knows if they're going to possibly hit it, kind of like, Kirill Maximov, Kar Savoy, and Tyler Tullio, which we're going to be talking about those three guys first, of course. All those three guys, Kar Savoy put up a great year in the NCAA. He started off hot and then started slowing down. I think he only got about 12 goals in 20 games, which is not bad for Kar Savoy in his first year in the NCAA. And he was doing really good right off the get-go because he was finding his spot. But then, the defenders started figuring out Savoy and how to defend him a little bit better, and that's when he slowed down. So the biggest thing for Savoy going into next year is coming up with some new ideas of attacking the net and being able to use that deadly wrist shot that he has to his advantage. So I think Kar Savoy, he's a long-term project, but is somebody that could potentially be a huge steal. And that's the same with Tyler Tullio. This is another guy that I could be a potential steal. He's the captain of the Oshawa Generals now. That was announced not that long ago. Plus, he signed his entry-level deal with the Oilers as well. So Ken Holland's already looking at this player with some, highlights. And not just that, he had a really good year down there in Slovakia as well. well. This is a player just to be really excited about. And then Kirill Maximov, he's had a bit of time in the Oilers depth chart. He's been down there for a little bit. He's 22 years old. He didn't have that bad of a year. I think it was the VHL. He put up a point per game. Didn't do that great in the KHL. Of course, my camera died, so I'll be right back. Hey guys, I'm back. So sorry guys about that. The camera randomly shut off, but let's keep on moving on as we'll get on to the defensemen and Philip Kemp and Michael Kesselring. Now, both of the guys didn't have fantastic seasons, but don't project as, top pairing defensemen. They don't really pair as, top 4 defensemen. They're maybe top 6, maybe even fringe defensemen. But I do believe in both Kemp and Kesselring's game that they possibly could be top 6 defensemen. Kemp being the left-handed guy, Kesselring being the right-handed guy. He's basically the next best right-handed defenseman in our system, right behind Evan Bouchard. So he does have a clear cut going towards, that top 6 pair, which I totally think he can. But most of these guys, these two defensemen, are defensive defensemen. That's what their main focus is. They're not going to be putting up massive amounts of points. They're not those types of defensemen. Michael Kesselring, he's 6'4", 190 pounds. Kemp, 6'3", 201 pounds. These two guys, they're big defensemen that were drafted late in the draft. I think they're still committed to university, or Kemp was playing for Bakersfield. Actually, I was wrong on that. He finished up with Yale last season. He was playing a little bit with Bakersfield and also playing down there in Vasby alongside of Raphael Lavoie. He didn't have a bad season, but compared to Lavoie, definitely not as good. And same with Kesselring. I think he was still playing there in NCAA. Did play a little bit for the Bakersfield Condors as well. Didn't do that bad. But once I said again, these guys are not big point producers. They're defensive defensemen who are, their main focus is defense. So you might be seeing these guys play in the top 6 later on in the future without a doubt. I could totally see that. And they're both really good defensemen. And then we'll move on. Also, Cooper Marody is in this tier list as well. Or in this tier. He had a pretty good season, kind of the same as Tyler Benson, put up a point per game. That great line between Benson, Marody, and McLeod. They played really good. Marody could play center and wing. Is a guy that could probably be in your top 9, maybe 4th line. Should be given a chance this upcoming season. You'll probably be seeing him, pushing for a spot during preseason. Maybe we could possibly even see him take up some time as well. But he's going to have to fight hard to beat out spots like Zach Cassian and Josh Archibald. So he's going to be playing really, really good in that preseason if he's going to probably want to be playing on the main roster. And then we got Stuart Skinner and Oliver Rodrigue. Stuart Skinner had a really good season this year. He threw up a .914 save percentage there in Bakersfield. Didn't do that bad also for the Edmonton Oilers as well in that one game. I mean, he wasn't that special. But that's besides the point. He did really well in the AHL, after he got sent down. He did really well. He was one of the best goalies for the AHL club. We actually went on a hot streak when Stuart Skinner was playing down there. And then Oliver Rodrigue, he didn't do too great in the AHL, but didn't do too bad in the European. I think he had about a .908 save percentage. Not too bad. And then Maxim Berezovkin, he's kind of a very small center. He has that, that potential to be a really, really good player in going forward. But right now he's, a long-term project, like most Russians on this team that we've drafted. They're long-term projects where you don't know if they're really going to be that good in the future, but he has the speed, he has the playmaking ability to be a really, really strong forward in the future for the Edmonton Oilers, but I don't think, he has that top 6 potential. I see him maybe top 9, maybe playing 3rd line, but most likely playing 4th line minutes, very limited minutes, or he's just going to be a career KHLer or, an AHLer as well. But that's the biggest thing with him. He's kind of a mystery right now, right? Like, we really don't know what he's going to be doing next. He's done really good in the Russian minor leagues. He's done really good there. Like to see how well he'll do in the KHL, which I think he's already played a few games there. Hasn't gotten a point in any of those games just yet, but I think as a guy that most likely will play down in the Russian minors again and probably rip it up this upcoming season and then maybe get a chance there in the KHL. But a lot of players like, Berezovkin don't really play that good in the KHL anyways at that age. There's only a few players that do really, really good at a young age there in the KHL. So we'll move on to tier 5 now, which we'll just kind of fly by this because we already know this has been a long video, and a lot of these guys, there's a lot of mystery with a lot of these guys that we're going to go over here in tier 5. A lot of them just have not really played very much games this past season. A lot of them just are big mysteries, and we really don't know where they're going to end up, right? So Ostap Safin, he played a lot of games in the ECHL this past season, and he wasn't that bad. I think he could still be a really good player, but he's had, some ups and downs, and we'll have to see how well he'll do in the AHL, and he hasn't really been able to play that great in the AHL, so this is kind of a big season for him, whether he's going to continue playing the ECHL or playing the AHL this year. Next up is Markus Niemelainen. Didn't do that great down there in, I think, the Finnish league. And then Phil Berglund, same with him. Same kind of year down there in the SHL, not putting up big numbers. And then Jake Chiasson, he was the new draft pick there. Did pretty well for I think it was the Brandon Wheat Kings or something like that. He went for a point per game, only playing 20 games. And, of course, it was a limited schedule and during COVID. He wasn't bad. We'll have to see, in this upcoming season where they'll play a full season, an actual season. So it's exciting to see how well he'll do. Pelle Räsänen, he went down a tier. He didn't do that great. I think he actually went to play in the Finnish league this past season, but his projected rating doesn't look that great. He doesn't look like he's going to be that good of a player. And at the age that he's at, this is around the time where he's supposed to start doing really good. And he only had 23 points in 58 games there in the Liga. And he didn't do that bad in the NCAA, but he's just not looking that bright right now. And then Tim Soderlund, he was picked up in the deal for Duncan Keith, of course. Definitely not a very good prospect. Didn't do that bad in the AHL. I think he was playing mostly in the Swedish league, and he didn't do that bad, but definitely not the greatest prospect in the world. Matei Petrov, he played a little bit in the one of the Russian minor leagues. He actually did quite well. He was actually one of the more exciting players from that draft recently, was Matei Petrov. He actually looks quite good. Shane Lachance, he was also in this past draft. He was a big power forward, basically. There's a lot of weaknesses with him, but there's a lot of positives. He's kind of like a long-term project, basically. He really didn't play, in any big leagues. Just because of COVID, this year was kind of shut down for Shane Lachance because he was playing for, majority of the season with the Boston Junior Bruins there in NCDC and only threw up 15 points in 25 games. So he doesn't look like a huge producer. And then Maxim Dezhinkin didn't really have that good of a year down there in the, Russian minor system. And then Patrick Siekin, same with him. He doesn't look that great either. There's some potential there as, a good two-way guy, but he scores a decent amount of goals, and he did this past year. I think he threw up about 7 goals. But, 21 years of age, he was a late-round pick. Same with Jeremias Lindwell as well. And then Luka Musenberger is the last one who we also selected. It might be part of the Olympic team there for Team Germany, so that might crank him higher up the list. But, Luka Musenberger, I don't have a lot of hype for because I really didn't get to watch a lot of his games. But there's not a lot of big talk for Luka Musenberger, and he wasn't supposed to be selected until like 200th overall selection. So it was a bit of a reach for this pick, and I don't know if it's really going to pan out for the Edmonton Oilers or not. We'll have to see. He really loves Leon Draisaitl. He's been training with Darnell Nurse. We'll have to see how it all ends up. But this is the prospect pyramid for the Edmonton Oilers. It looks pretty exciting. I really, really like, the way that this team looks. Prospect wise, we have a lot of prospects that, are fringe players. We really don't know what the future of them is going to really be like. And then, of course, the players coming off the board, we have Dylan Wells, who was traded to Carolina, Matteo Blimmel, which we don't know what happened. We lost his rights. We don't know if Ken Holland just forgot or what the heck. And then we also, other players, William Legason, Evan Bouchard, and Ryan McLeod. Evan Bouchard and William Legason are not rookies anymore. And Ryan McLeod, he's going to be playing, full-time this year. He's practically stenciled in as the third-line centerman, and he played a decent amount of games last year, so I decided to pull him off the board because he's practically a guarantee to play most of the games in this upcoming season. So those are the players coming off the board, and tell me, guys, how you guys thought of the prospect pyramid, and maybe put your guys' own prospect pyramid in the comment section down below, and whatever else. If I forgot anybody in this prospect pyramid, whatever it may be, tell me, guys, in the comment section below. I'm definitely not a big major scout, so I definitely, it took me a long time to put this thing together, and I might have forgotten a few people like I did last year. But for right now, guys, I'm going to end the video here. Make sure to like and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Adios, amigo.